Well, thank you to everyone who's chosen to watch this video. Let me give you a brief description of who I am and why I would give you this presentation today. So my name is Dr. Ginger Charles. I am a retired police sergeant, police officer with over 27 years working as a police officer. I have advanced degrees in psychology. My master's is in clinical psychology and my doctorate is in health psychology. I do a great amount of research within the police community, specifically the police culture, looking at the effects of police work on police officers and how we can further resiliency and thrivability within this particular career. I think this is very important right now with what's going on in our world. When we look at the killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis, when we look at some of the other horrific events that have happened just recently, I thought it was probably appropriate to maybe give this presentation. Hopefully you enjoy it. If you do, please let me know. I'm going to post this on YouTube. It would be nice for a shout out if you did enjoy this or you do find this of value. So here we go. I want to talk to you today about the police culture and the psychology of fear. So let's start presenting. If I can get this to work, there we go. All right, so I want to talk about the brain. I think one of the most difficult things for police officers is understanding the physiology of what's actually happening to them. And I thought about this for many years as a police officer myself. You know, we are told things like, go out and be professional. I can remember as a young police officer, I was like, well, what does that mean? What do you mean, go out and be professional? I don't even know how to be a cop. What do you mean by being professional? And so I wanted to break this down through some great work, some fellow docs that focus within the brain and the physiology of the brain and how it works and how it's divided. And so here we go. So when we talk about the brain, we're basically dividing it into three separate parts. So we have this part back here, which I'm going to go into in a second, called the cerebellum, which is the oldest part. Then we have this middle part here, which is called the mammalian brain, where most of us hang out. And then you have this front part here, which is the neocortex. So we'll go into those specifically here. So when we look at the cerebellum, again, it's the oldest part of our brain. That's the first one that develops as we are being created. And it controls basic physiological functions such as movement and breathing. So when we see this area damaged, we see inability to walk correctly. Sometimes there are breathing issues that come up when this area is damaged. So this is the cerebellum. This is associated, when it is stressed, if someone is in this area of the brain, you're in the oldest part of the brain, and so the response in stress is the freeze response. This is where the individual or the animal or whoever freezes, actually cannot function. There's no response from them. Training new police officers, we used to see this with them when they had never been in a fight in their entire life. They would come in and we would do red man training or have some other kind of training with them involving defensive tactics, and they would completely freeze. This is a very dangerous part of the brain to be in when we're facing stress. If you can imagine, this is like the reptile. So we call this the reptilian brain. This is where the reptile is on the top of the water, on the bottom of the pond. And that reptile will slow his breathing down to the point where it almost is imperceptible. So when that happens, we can't tell if there's actually anything going on there too. And that is so whether he is prey or predator, that threat will pass him by. All right. The next area here, again, as I said, is the mammalian brain. This is, your larger functions. This is where we have the fight or flight response in stress. This is where most of us hang out most of the time, is in this fight or flight response. It is emotion-centered. If you look at this little purple pea-sized organ here, this is called the amygdala. And the amygdala is basically the seat of your emotions. And within those emotions, I'm talking only about anger, fear, and aggression. So when we look at this particular area of the brain that takes care of us and causes us to be alive and survive a fight or an encounter, whether we run away or confront it, it is anger, fear, and aggression. And most of us hang out here. So when we are police officers and we're working and we haven't had good training, or we are new on our job and we don't have much confidence, this is where we're at. We are in this fight or flight emotion-centered area of the brain. Okay. The next area is the most important. If I go back just briefly here, if you look at this area that I'm using with my pointer here, this front part of the brain is the neocortex. So the neocortex, that's the newer brain that develops last. In fact, for most human beings, you usually see full development at age 25. It is the higher executive functions of the brain. It is where you see hope and resilience, problem solving, creativity, lying. So any kind of out-of-the-box thinking comes from this particular area. This is a very, very powerful area. And the more that we train and the more that we're comfortable and confident, we tend to hang out there. So it's very important to really develop our sense of awareness, our confidence, be trained, be in check with our emotions in order to be in this particular area. Now, why is that important? What happens here? So when we look at changes that need to happen within all police cultures, here's just 4. If we look at training, it's been focused on warrior mentality for many, many years. I am not saying that we should not do warrior training at some points in our career, but we cannot blanketly do warrior training anymore. That is ridiculous. It causes more problems than not. We need to start looking at guardian training. So in other words, we are of the community and we serve the community. It is not us versus them. And so we have to move police officers out of that mentality. It is critical to the police officer's health, to the community's health, to our culture's health. Second thing, self-reflection. So defining what is our purpose? Why are we here? So when we look at the George Floyd killing and what happened with that, and you look at that mentality that was going on as the officer was kneeling on his neck there, unwilling to give at all in that encounter. And you see the crowd screaming. There were several people screaming about how this was wrong, stop doing that. And there was no thought process, at least it didn't appear so, as far as this particular officer taking a look at his behavior and saying this is wrong, or the officer standing just around this George Floyd and saying this is wrong, stop this. So that self-reflection is really critical as far as what is my behavior, how am I coming across to the world, what can I do better. The third thing is diversity, and this is inclusion of others' beliefs, races, ethnicities, religions, genders. All of this is so critical for our community. In fact, as beings on this earth, we are actually stronger if we have a diverse community thought process. The more thoughts, diverse beings that we are together, the stronger we are, because we come up with better solutions rather than having a very one-sided or one-focused, very narrow vision. We have this ability to tap into others' thoughts and beliefs and actions. That is critical for our survival. And the last is accountability. And we're seeing some of that right now. So we're seeing the consequences and the responsibilities. Minneapolis has now charged this particular officer with third-degree murder and manslaughter. The chief fired all the officers involved immediately. The crowd began to react as far as this is not right, we want this changed, and you saw this happening all across the United States. So this accountability is huge right now. It is very powerful. And so then you see the changes in some of these police officers and sergeants as they begin to interact with people on the field protesting, taking a knee, giving a hug, walking with them and protesting with them. That is exactly what has to happen. That is where we begin to build the bond with people. It is critical. So what this does is it causes cognitive flexibility. This is where we see compassion, hope, problem solving, peace, and resilience. This is what makes the job worthwhile. Now, I'm not saying we don't have a bad day and we don't have to do some horrible things within our profession here. But what I am saying is that for the most part, much of this job has to do with helping people in their worst day, not hurting them, not causing more pain, not causing more damage in this earth. So this cognitive flexibility about hanging out in the neocortex and thinking about, what am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And always being flexible about being able to move in whatever direction makes us safer, makes us better police officers, makes us better public servants for the people in our community. Okay, so that's basically it. I just wanted to give you a quick rundown. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you did. And thank you.